Cool. That was so cool because you were there on the beach and now, boom, you're in the hotel room. I loved it. Well, I don't know if you noticed the last couple. In fact, I'm going to do this live on the air. We'll talk about this because just in the last a little while, we developed an eye that was starting to show up here in the data, and I can show you a couple of different things. This is the clean IR, but the long wave IR has a little bit better perspective, I think, of what is now a little bit of an eye just to the east of Marsh Harbor here, Brett, that just started to take shape right after dark. And we, right after dark is about when we expected this to sort of blossom a little bit. It might, especially now that we have an eye. Normally an eye is sort of indicative of having a hurricane, and we're so close, by the way. And it doesn't really matter if it's 65 miles per hour or 75 when you really start talking about that it matters. Yeah. You have no audio? You are medias. Yeah, because I can hear you in my earballs. Check 2, 1, 2, 3. Let's try this again. Let's don't try that again. How about now? Let's see if this is any different because this is again your microphone from the other night.
Good evening, guys, here on the YouTube channel Local. It is about 6 o'clock, and as you can...
I'm so good at this. You're not in the desktop there. Ask them if we can take a quick break here and start over because we. Yeah, let me ask y'all to forgive us for just a second because this is something I've done. Probably I'm not great yet at this product, this OBS product that we put out here. So give us just a break for just a second here. We'll be back 5 minutes, I promise, because this is a button that dummy here forgot to hit probably. So just give us one moment. You're 10, browser 10. Hmm. but I hear you in my ear. How about now?
Where the source is there. I just don't see me still. There it is. Am my browser 10 going now? Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
I hear you.
Wow, there we are. They've got us now. Got me now. All right, David, check your audio.
1 2 1 2 1 2.
All right, good deal. Loud and clear. All right, sorry about that, folks. Looks like we had some audio difficulties now. We're working to get through those. So basically, we're going to go back through the show.
I don't want to replay your open. It was too good. Your open was really too good. Nobody heard your open, I wonder?
Yeah, they did hear the audio on the open because the open was a different source. So.
It was an award-winning open.
All right, guys. David, Neal, meteorologist, Brett Adair. We're here looking at the system. I know you heard David talk. We're looking at now Tropical Storm Nicole. Satellite, as David alluded to, showing that eye now there across portions of the eastern Bahamas, east of Marsh Harbor. This is what's going to begin to give us trouble overnight, tomorrow night, and during the day tomorrow, particularly as it continues to move toward the shoreline. David, you just go ahead and go into the analysis, and I'll talk a little bit about what we saw outside today.
Yeah, well, again, what we were talking about was that we now have somewhat of an eye that actually began to show up a couple of hours ago, and you can, for the first time, really, this looks more tropical, Brett, than subtropical. All day long today, this thing had a cold front hanging out the bottom of it. It looked like really it was going to be subtropical in nature the entire time as it moved on east to west, actually. But now it's enclosed a little bit. The banding is featured there all the way around it. And you always look for quadrants. And in this case, the quadrants that we'd be talking about are, if we sort of split it right here, do they look alike on these quadrants? And it does, starting to look a little bit more like a tropical system here. And in fact, starting to look a little bit more like a hurricane, as we would say. But again, I think the thing I was talking about was the fact that it doesn't matter if it's got 60-mile-per-hour winds or 75, and it's called a hurricane. There's no difference that's going to show up as far as the effects go. So more or less what we're looking at is a strengthening situation here. The actual, the water temperatures are still warm enough for this to go ahead and do what it's going to do, and everything looks like, at least at this point, that all the everything is derived from the ocean now. You're getting the energy out of the ocean, and it's beginning to ramp up a little bit more. And now you got a bottom and top side. You got winds coming in from the opposite directions in a counterclockwise sort of fashion. And now it is what it is. I wish we had a visible image to look at it at this point.
Yeah, we just happen to be a little bit late there with the sun setting, with the time change and all that jazz, and the sun setting now. Which I know that really doesn't matter in terms of how long, the sun is up. But given the time we're doing the show, we don't have the visible available. One thing you can see there, though, is it's got a solid core of moisture all the way around the center. There's some dry air that's out there as well, but it's got a solid core moisture that's around the center. And it does look much more tropical in nature versus looking subtropical, like a comma with a cold front hanging off of it. It looked like that much of the day yesterday and even earlier this morning. It's gotten a better look, more tropical, hence why the National Hurricane Center has now designated it as a tropical storm. One of the interesting things David and I have been talking about here as he goes through the models, we actually have live hurricane hunters out there right now in the storm. I think they may be getting ready to exit the storm, David, but it looks like 984 millibars is what we found on the recent drop right there in the center of that circulation we've been talking about.
The HMON, by the way, I'm looking at the 18Z HMON, which has it at 983 at landfall. So that's you don't discount any of that at this point. But as far as the modeling goes, the modeling's all been kind of close through the day today. I keep hitting the wrong thing here, but this is what it looks like at the moment. We got 988 initializing on the WRF. 988 just offshore there, and as it comes closer and closer to shore, we're looking at what appears to be landfall somewhere within the 10 p.m. to midnight time frame tomorrow night, as it does get a little bit closer here, and there's not much more of a window, Brett, than 50 miles north or south of all the modeling that I've seen between Port St. Lucie and West Palm Beach for an actual landfall. But again, this is the 9 o'clock hour, and at midnight, it looks like the low is already on shore at that point, and we've got 974 as far as the H-Worf is concerned right there at landfall. And the banding features still look pretty ominous. I got to say, this is, for a minimal hurricane, don't forget the fact that minimal hurricanes often bring lots of tornadoes. And that might be the case on the north side of this, actually even on the south side of this, as far south as Fort Lauderdale in that area.
Yeah, no doubt about that. There's a couple of points that you make here that are very interesting too. So
Thank you.
let's talk a little bit about something. Maybe David, you can pull this graphic. Can you pull the latest National Hurricane Center
I'd be happy to, Brett.
forecast? And the reason I want to do that, I want you to pull up the graphic that shows the warnings cone static images, because it has the wind field here. You see that is not typical of any tropical cyclone in terms of that wind field. That wind field is huge. You can see north to south, that encompasses just about the entire peninsula of Florida there. So as the center of the system moves toward the coastline tomorrow night, that entire wind field is going to engulf. So you're going to see tropical storm force winds possibly as far south as Miami, possibly as far north as Savannah, Georgia at the exact same time, even if you're not in some of these heavier bands, because this system was more subtropical in nature. And those systems are like nor'easters that we see in the northeast U.S. in the wintertime. One of the storms that I can remember, and this is not going to be like that, but that had a wind field of this expansive size that was subtropical, was Superstorm Sandy. Had a very large wind field, and it developed into a hurricane, but it was subtropical, and it moved on shore. So it drove tons of water into New Jersey and New York and coastal sections up there in the Northeast. This is likely going to drive a ton of water up into the St. John River, all of the inlets, all the way up into South Carolina. There's going to be an onshore flow as this system even comes inland and makes a turn toward the north and east up the spine of the Appalachians. So we're going to talk about the center of the system, which is where the heaviest rain, the flood threat is going to be. However, the tornado threat is going to be in those outer bands, and there's going to be a pretty wide swath where we're going to see a high. Number one, we're in a higher than normal tide cycle right now because we're in a full moon phase. We had the full moon this morning, so we're still on the top side of the tide cycle. I believe there's some king tide that's going on around here. And then, David, I tell you what, let's go to that drone video here in the Daytona Beach area that we shot earlier today. And David is going to give you kind of a bird's eye view of what we saw today and the reasons that some things are taking place. Here in Volusia County, got a mandatory evacuation on the barrier islands here that starts tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.
Now,
Reason for that.
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be honest. This first time I'm seeing it as well. It's pretty wild.
Well, that's some of the outer band activity that moved on shore today. Well, after you see this, you're going to see what we see as a problem. And the mayor here in Daytona Beach sees as a problem as well. You can see those large swells moving toward those condominiums there. There's typically a lot of beach that is there, but the tide cycle and the water levels are just higher than normal right now. Number one, because of the storm. Number two, because of the phases. All right. After we go through this phase right here, you're going to see damage along the coastline here, right there, from erosion. There's a swimming pool that collapsed at one of the hotels because of Ian. This was over a month ago. Hurricane Ian made landfall to the west, and it's moved across Florida, had onshore flow here the entire time. A lot of the seawall was destroyed, the dunes fully destroyed. So there's no protection here on the coastal areas along Daytona Beach shores. So we have been told now that we're in a hotel here on Daytona Beach shores, just off the A1A, we have to be out by 11 a.m. So everyone out here on the barrier is being forced out of their hotels, and due to the mandatory evacuation, we're going to likely stay out here somewhere, but we're going to be at a high point, and we're likely not going to be in a hotel type structure because everything's going to shut down because of this. You can see it. I mean, and from a public safety standpoint, there's definitely problems there. All this damage was caused by Ian, and there's no protective barrier out there for it now. So there is what they're dealing with. They're worried that some of this could be eroded away so badly. You see how close it is to those condominiums there. You know, could you imagine having the edge of a condo or something like that
Right.
being unearthed?
Yeah, and I was looking at. I mean, if you go, let's just talk about maybe New Smyrna Beach, somewhere down in there. I mean, again, all these tides are going to be super high across this area, but one of those areas in particular down there near New Smyrna Beach, and I can show you the medium. What they're talking about is medium tides at the moment. The high tide again ends up being tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., and then it's another small fall off to the tide by late into the evening, but it's about a 3-foot tide you can see in between the medium tides are. This is Ponce de Leon in the inlet south, but a high tide again tomorrow night of at 8:16 is when that happens. Now with landfall coming in, or at least the fetch is going to be at its greatest at about that point. And so that's indicative of all along that coastal area there as far as the tides go, Brett. I've looked them up. Here and there across that entire region too. Let me, I'm going to try something here if you'll let me, because I did prepare this as we went through the day. Today, I prepared a show that has some information for us now. And just to show you sort of what we're looking at here as this, the entirety of this system started to come on in. Now, this is the latest. This is 27.3 to the north, 74.3 west. The minimum pressure is now 984, I think, Brett. Is it still there?
Yeah, it's 984 right now.
And we got 65-mile-per-hour winds associated with it. But the IR blew up right there right before dark. And again, we got rid of that trailing little cold front, if you will, that was down at the bottom part of this. And now we've secured an eye. The other thing to notice is, do you see the lightning flashes there to the west?
We've actually seen some of those with our naked eye
Have
here
you?
recently.
All right, so much of what we're looking at here is a storm system that starts to increase in intensity and nocturnally, if you will, because of the fact that the air's cooling at night. The buoy out there still has, and this is the buoy that's about 100 miles away, still has wind speeds at about 35 to 40 miles per hour, some gusts up to 46, 47 miles per hour. That was just a little while ago. Sea surface temperature is still above 80 degrees, so all indications are that it is still nice and warm for that to take place, for that whole situation to take place and do so very well. So other than that, we're still looking at a storm that seems to be coming up in intensity a little bit tonight. Can it come up enough to be a big-time difference, 2 or 3? That's probably not likely be. We've seen it a couple of times, but probably not likely. And again, 44.7, so the wind gusts that are going on out there, some of that's going to translate onshore as we go through the rest of the night tonight. And again, with the landfall around midnight tomorrow night, it'll just be a progressively nastier day as we move along. And there's already some of the rain bands coming in.
Yeah, we're seeing some of that action here. Again, as you mentioned, we've seen some lightning flashes out here out on the balcony. As we were driving in just a little while ago, we saw those lightning flashes as well. So definitely going to see business pick up. In terms of the hurricane, to be honest with you, I don't think it matters at this point if we get a Category 1 or a Category 2. I think storm surge is going to be the biggest thing in the coastal flood threat. One of the other elements, though, that is definitely a factor, a lot of these places here took a lot of damage from Ian due to wind, too. We watched a lot of people today still moving stuff out of their homes, lining it up for city pickup, couches, mattresses. I mean, it flooded quite a bit around the Daytona area too. So it was problematic, 100% problematic for this area, and it's going to continue.
So, I mean, the deal is that as we move along through the next couple of days, couple of hours in particular, we'll begin to see the whole thing sort of deteriorate as we move on through. Brett, some of your drone footage again. Let me move this forward a little bit to show you what we're looking at, which was the fact that we still had we still had a lot of beach erosion. That's going to be one of the main problems as this whole thing continues to move on through the beach erosion, along with there may be some heavier rain. I saw some of the rain totals that may get up into the 6 to 7 inch range should we make landfall where we think we are. And even above that, there may be problems with the beach erosion that does take place and some localized flash flooding. Not a huge deal overall, at least not suspected to be a huge deal, but the flash flooding is still a possibility. And other than that, the problems with this, the thing that people ought to think about is, there could be some power outages. I saw a picture earlier. It was a meme. It said, South Floridians, here's what we think about a Category 1 hurricane. It was just a picture of everybody out on the beach. So is that the sentiment you hear?
That's kind of the sentiment, David. The beach here, one of the interesting things is you can see there are not many people along the beach because it's technically closed due to the damage still. They were supposed to be doing a lot of renovation to the beach this week, and I think it was going to open back up in some areas this weekend, but as you can tell, that ain't going to happen. So, it just might as well ride the storm out, let it do its thing, and assess the damage afterwards on Friday or Saturday, which is what the city's going to be doing. And again, because there's so much infrastructure damage already out here, that's the reason I think for the mandatory with a Cat 1, Cat 2 type situation, because it's not really the typical. But some of the structures out here, again, you can imagine right along the shoreline, the engineers haven't been able to get out here and really take a look at everything, so they don't really know what's safe and what's not to make it through a bigger storm.
All right, let me try to do this real quick here. And again, what we're still talking about or what we're still thinking is that the bulk of all of this as it comes on through. Let me move a little bit forward here to show you. Storm surge right there. Let me take this to a full screen mode. The bulk of this will be coming on shore as we move into the early part of the day tomorrow. We are expecting to see the precipitation really start to pick up early tomorrow morning as we saw. And we'll look at the modeling here in just a couple of minutes. Flash flood risk, again, that we're looking at is, there's a 15% chance of, this has always been a little bit confusing to me, Brett. There's a 15% chance of some flash flooding in the yellow areas, which means there's, really an 85% chance it won't.
Yeah, that's that's really not.
It's just
something I don't want to comment too much on. Let's just put it this way: there's going to be some areas of flash flooding.
Are you saying there's a chance? I'm going to show you some of these. This is what was put out by many of the National Weather Service offices during the day today. This is the one out of Miami, and I can show you the things that they are looking at. Basically, the wind threat is there. The flooding threat is also, flooding rain threat is real across South Florida, especially into Lake Okeechobee and all points to the south, if you will. The storm surge is greatly effective depending upon where you are. Now, if you're on the south side of this storm, you're going to see the water go out, and there won't be any such of a thing. But the tornado threat is real as well, and that's a little bit further off to the north. As far as the surge warnings go, this is where they are. There on the beach, if you will, where we're still looking at the likelihood. If you talk about at this point, look at all the warnings that we do have, watches and warnings that are up and in effect across this region, flood watches and the like that do continue on. And there's some of the conditions for the day tomorrow with the rain chances and such coming up. And I've just got map after map here that I could show you from everybody there. And here's the last couple of images that I could capture of the visible, and it was pretty ominous there, but also very easy to see and valid that this is a low pressure center now.
Yeah, no doubt, David. It's definitely organizing. It's getting more organized again. If it has a chance to make a run at hurricane, it's probably going to do that overnight tonight, before it gets ready to come on in. Again, the wind field's so massive. High-end tropical storm, low-end hurricane, it really doesn't matter. The impacts are going to be pretty much the same. Again, storm surge, inland flooding, river flooding, because all that water's got to go into these rivers and tributaries, which have dealt with flooding, as of late with Ian and some of the other tropical downpours that have been going on down here. And, again, it's still fairly saturated, so that's going to be a plausible issue. The storm's going to move pretty quick, though. As you see, we've got some lightning output there. that's right around the core of the storm. There's still some cooler air aloft, most likely, aiding in some of that lightning activity. Dry air, you can see some of the dry air on the southeast side is definitely impacting a little bit, but the core's still pretty tight there as it continues to move off toward the west.
Yeah, some of these, again, this is some of the wind gusts, and you can see they're in the 65-mile-per-hour range. This is, again, a projection coming in from the modeling. It says the upper right-hand side of this, so the further north you are, the more likely you are to experience those winds that'll be near hurricane force. And every model I could come out with, composite reflectivity, had this thing as a landfall somewhere in between West Palm Beach and 50 miles north or south. And a couple of them still, Brett, I don't know what the official is. We'll look at that in just a couple of minutes. But a couple of them still had this thing coming out the other side and into the Gulf of Mexico. And I don't know what the official says at this point. I know earlier you and I were talking and you said something about it just moving right on up the peninsula. But there are a few of the models that are swaying a little bit over into the Gulf of Mexico here at the moment, too. And I don't want to say anything could happen, but once you get back out over the water, Brett, explain this because this is your deal today.
So those are river gauges. That is going to be man, what does that say? Mayport. That is going to be the St. John River at Mayport. All right, so let me get a little bit of information here that I gave David earlier pulled up so that I can detail it out properly. That gauge is showing a water level early Thursday morning of 10 feet. That would be the highest water level recorded if that were to verify at that Mayport gauge in the last 100 years. And then that is a little over 6.2 feet there. That is going to be at the Riverwalk, and that is in Jacksonville. So if that comes to be realized, that will be the second highest water level in the last 100 years. So those are still very significant. Again, this wind field and the level of water rise that we're going to see here is going to be problematic. So if you're not near the center of the storm, it doesn't.
Yeah, the other thing about this too was you were talking about that wind field, how far to the north it goes. There's 118 miles per hour there if you believe what you see. Just north of Port St. Lucie with the thing coming on in. That's 977 millibars projected by the HWRF at that point. But the Mayport thing that we were looking at there too, that would be somewhat unprecedented, and it'd have to sit out there for a while to do that, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, well, honestly, David, the wind field's so massive already. I think it's already been out there long enough. I think we're going to see quite a level rise once we see a forward momentum move toward the coast. We were moving northwest, and then we kind of did a little bend. Again, this is very erratic motion over the last 24 hours. But once it starts to move toward the west, it's going to push that water pretty swiftly. And since you mentioned it, I've actually pulled up the modeling. The 0Z track guidance is out now. And every piece of modeling on these global track guidance pretty well shows the same thing. It shows that 50-mile stretch that you mentioned of landfall there. But it looks like that everything is trying to trend about 25 miles to 35 miles northeast of Lake, which would be here, which would be somewhere around Fort Pierce, north side of Port St. Lucie, which is the National Hurricane Center track. The new one goes right over Fort Pierce.
Okay.
So it's pretty well in line with the track guidance. The only thing that I'm curious to see over the next several hours is the system's already down to 984 and it's in a strengthening mode. 970s, even upper 960s is not out of the realm of possibility if we keep seeing a steady type strengthening from the system going forward.
Hey, Brett.
Yep.
Can I show this for a second?
That is awesome.
I don't know if it's, I think that one on the left is a tarpon or snook.
I see the one on the right at the bottom as well.
At the right at the bottom. And then those are mullet, I think, right there over the lights. But those might be tarpon there underneath the lights. If you're familiar with the Florida Marine Camp, it's one of my favorite camps because they use these moonlights there. And my grandmother would have a hard time not trying to sneak a fishing rod in there to get that. Isn't it weird how the fish are swimming anticyclonically too?
Yeah,
Or did I just
I
make
see
that
that.
up?
That is a huge school. I guarantee you, David, that's probably some tarpon right there. Those are big fish.
Yeah, the little ones are mullet, I'm pretty
Right.
sure, but the I think that's tarpon kind of swimming around there, just or it could be some cudas, I guess, some small cudas, or snook. I don't know. It's one of the three. But that's a cool site. That's the Florida Marine Cam that we'll be watching for Fort Lauderdale during the entire day tomorrow. We're going to make sure that we keep you up to date with some of the cameras into the area, as well as Brett's. We'll be doing that, and I promise you I'll have this audio thing figured out. I'm too old, I think. That's a tarpon right there in the first light on the left. I just always tell you. But I love
That's a
that
lot
shot.
of fish.
I
That's a
love that
lot of
shot.
fish, in other words. I love fish, David. There's two things that we love: fish and Braves and baseball. If you listen to us long enough, you're going to hear it all when it comes to those two topics.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful camera there, and it's going to get interesting tomorrow night, David.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, all these cameras will be. I mean, this is going to be my safety camera tomorrow. If all goes to, if I lose you and I lose my voice and whatever, we'll just kind of watch this aquarium here as it all goes on. But this is a spot right here, just south of the bridge. If you're familiar with Fort Lauderdale, a lot of people I know who do down in here. That's my boat right there off into the distance there on the right hand side.
Well, David,
Yeah.
David, you're actually going to have some more interesting views tomorrow afternoon as well as we get toward more landfall. I spoke with Don today. Don is one of our partners with Radar Omega.
Right.
My live stream will be within Radar Omega, and then we will have my individual feed up on YouTube, and I'll have David running the coverage from the office there. It'll be on YouTube as well, just like this. We're going to have 4 to 6 storm surge and bridge camera packs tomorrow, David. Don confirmed we would be putting those up first thing in the morning, starting south of Jacksonville and going further south.
These are all the folks who are waiting down there in South Florida. This is Duval Street, the Key West camera there, just outside one of the many taverns there in southern Florida, but Duval Street. I actually saw these people go through the Hurricane Ian. I watched them go through that, and nobody really came back inside or anything like that. So Floridians are a little bit different when it comes to this sort of a situation, and we'll be, sort of efforting that too as we move along. In Miami, we're also going to be watching several of the cams there. A little bit of rain falling right now in downtown Miami. This is one of the resort cams there, but you can see the beach at least right there. Some breakers coming in, Brett, and the beach coming up just a little bit closer and closer. I didn't really actually see the beach when I looked at this earlier in the day today, so that's a little bit of a change occurring there too.
The water levels are going to go up from here. So earlier when I was speaking, I know you guys couldn't hear me, so I'm going to break down a little bit of what I told David before we came on. Obviously, we're being evicted from our hotel here at 11 a.m. in the morning. Our plan is likely going to be to deal with some of the flooding element and the storm surge element, and we will be in the truck dealing with that tomorrow night. So once we leave here, we'll probably fire our feed up and get started, because as we've looked at, all the modeling shows midnight to 3 a.m. is kind of that landfall time period. So we're going to be out during the night tomorrow night, it looks like. So we're going to get a later start tomorrow so that we can cover the bulk of this as it's coming in. And we'll likely be roaming somewhere from Daytona Beach all the way down toward Port St. Lucie. I'm going to be looking for those wind impacts as well as the storm surge. And David's, going to be covering the map side of this from the office, and we'll be talking to you pretty much throughout the entire event.
Yeah, right now we're looking at some of the METAR data there along the coastline. There's some 20-mile-per-hour winds just south of Sebastian Inlet over in the Fort Pierce area. You go down to Stewart, 25 miles per hour there. These will be very important and key to us as we move through the day tomorrow. And everything at this point looks to be pointing to a landfalling semi hurricane tropical storm sort of in that area there. But the National Hurricane Center is expecting there to be a possible hurricane landfall that goes along with this. So certainly we'll be looking. Your video just popped up on my screen here. Somebody's borrowing it. But anyway, that's what it looks like at this moment. Some of the other data that we're talking about as well. The temperatures don't really matter here, but the wind speed and the wind direction, we'll be following that during the day tomorrow. And it's obviously going to be a northerly wind here at the moment, counterclockwise flow around the low pressure center itself. But we'll see that changing during the day tomorrow. It'll be more of an onshore flow, a direct onshore flow coming in. As the low pressure gets a little bit closer, we'll start to see this flow, if you will, be perpendicular to the coast. And that's when you have problems, because it comes up here and it really doesn't have a way to go except north or south. And a lot of that depends on the shape of the shore, whether or not you hold it, whether or not you can release it. And one thing is for sure, Brett, and we've seen this many, many times into the Gulf Coast this time of the year, is that the beach will be rearranged as we get into Thursday and Friday. You'll see a different beach totally there across that portion. You can drive on I thought it was so cool. I was down at New Smyrna Beach with a friend of mine. You can drive on the beach right there if you're a resident, not just wacko. But you can drive on the beach there, and I'm afraid it's going to be rearranged.
Well, yeah, they've got all those accesses. We went and took a little bit of that. Well, they've got those closed off, so you can't do that right now, obviously, because you still got debris and damage from the previous storm. So yeah, it's going to be a while after this takes place. As David mentioned, the landfall there, as this thing trucks across Florida, the onshore flow on the eastern side is going to keep water coming in for a long time, probably a 10 to 12-hour period, because once it changes and the center continues to move off toward the west, your flow is going to be coming perpendicular to the shoreline for quite some time until it really starts to move off more toward the north and gets up into the Big Bend area and then starts to eject into Georgia and the Carolinas.
You can see only about 330 miles away from the coastline now. If it made a beeline into that general direction, it would be 331, and at midnight tomorrow night we get a landfall. So you can do the math right there, and I can't, but basically what it means is that we're still chugging along here to the west. There was a little bit of a jog, and I can still see maybe a little bit of jog southward. I think that's more of a spinning top sort of a situation where momentum might take it and jog it down that way just a little bit. But at this point, as it all does move in that general direction, what we're looking at here is at the lower levels, we still have some wraparounds, begin to cut off some of the dry air and let it wrap up with the moisture that is the feeder banding situation. Even a few little thunderstorms beginning to blow up on the last few images there that you can see. But overall, a healthy storm at this point that there's no reason why this doesn't just continue to strengthen a little bit as it moves on from the east to the west. Is there a plane still out there, B?
Looking right now, David, I think the plane just kind of left the area. I think it made its last pass.
Yeah.
Let me check. I'm checking right now. Hurricane Hunters recon. Mission finished. Okay, yeah, they're out. They're headed back to Florida. The last drop they got, 986, 984, 984, and it had a little bit of a south of west motion with that center, because that convection on the north side, I believe, is pulling the center a little bit further to the southwest as it wraps around. So, yeah, I mean, anything's within the realm of possibility, in my opinion, still from maybe just north of Fort Lauderdale on up even to Daytona. I think there's landfall potential really anywhere within that range.
Sea surface temperatures are still on the the moderate side right there. There's nothing really different as far as that goes. Let me see if I can add some of this here. The track and the cone.
Right. That's why we're looking at more of a gradual strengthening situation here versus anything rapid, because sea surface temps are supportive of a hurricane, but they're not supportive of anything super strong. And then upper level conditions are supportive of this type of development. Again, nothing that looks to be extremely powerful. But again, this is a problem. This is going to be a problem for Florida, especially the East Coast, over the next 48 to 72 hours.
So the projection is at midnight tonight, 70 miles per hour, just below hurricane strength again. That would be at midnight tonight. But then a Category 1 hurricane by tomorrow morning when we wake up with the storm very near Marsh Harbor. This is at noontime, actually, during the day tomorrow at 75 miles per hour with some gusts up to 90 miles per hour, still moving to the west-northwest at that point. And then tomorrow evening at midnight, these are going to be 12-hour intervals. It is a Category 1 hurricane at 75 mile per hour winds, still moving to the west-northwest, some 90 mile per hour gusts with Hurricane Nicole just off the coast there, West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie into that region before coming on shore. And now the NHC says somewhere just north of Tampa, we have a turn to the north more here. Wind speeds are still at 65, though, all the way over to Tampa, Brett. And this would be during the day Thursday at noontime. We're still kicking. I got some family down in Orlando at Disney. Sadly, which is the happiest place on earth, but this is not going to be nice for Disney.
No, and David, let me correct myself before we go any further. I was wrong. There is a second mission that is actually in Nicole right now.
Okay.
And they just made a pass. So here's something interesting. David, go to can you pull a browser window? I really would rather show this.
Why don't you show
Pull
this?
browser window. Let's go to tropicaltidbits.com.
Did you ask them?
Yeah, Levi will be fine with it.
Okay.
I've seen it on too many YouTube videos. I'll talk to him. Let's see. Go to Tropical Tidbits there. Let's take a look here at some of the modeling.
You gotta chill, man. Don't put too much pressure on me here.
No.
There we go.
No.
What do you want to see?
Okay.
The recon?
Click the recon there, and let's go down. Go down. That storm, that one is just finished. The next one is your active. There you go. Click that big image there. You can see, we can zoom in a little bit there. 984 is what they found just a few moments ago, but you can see, looks like they missed the center.
A little bit.
Right. So, and it looks like the center may be a little bit elongated right now. But what I want to talk about is look how expansive that wind field is on the northwest side, even in the area where there's drier air.
Yeah.
That wind field's really growing over the last little bit on the western and northwest side. So
that's the current. You look at the data here, you can see one thing that you see immediately is there's a drop. So this is going to be the pressure and the flight level winds that are occurring here. But there was a drop right here, and that's where they dropped down to 980 millibars, was right here at this time frame here with the peak wind. Everything drops right there on that graph. So the red is indicative of the barometric pressure. Flight level wind is in the blue there. And the other thing that you will notice, temperature always goes up right there as they enter the middle of the storm. There's a thermometer going up there along with the dew point. So it's a warm core situation there that's taking place. And then you see the rain rate also is going to drop off to nothing when you're in the eye of a hurricane. That's the blue line that you'll see right there, which is the rain rate, which is nada. And there's some of the diagramming that comes in. But there's the center of the storm right there when they passed over it.
Right. And that's kind of what's going on there with the hurricane hunters that are in there. Levi, by the way, guys, if you're interested, if you're a weather nut, tropicaltidbits.com. Levi does a wonderful job on this website with getting accurate, accurate active data coming in from the hurricane hunters and computer models, you name it. He's got all kind of data there that you can go and kind of geek out on. And, we use all these tools. All this hurricane hunter data that we're showing you is going to get ingested into our computer models. That's going to help us determine speed, intensity, strength of the storm. All of those things go into our computer model guidance. The Air Force hurricane hunters are very important to all of the hurricane modeling. So again, just wanted to throw a plug out there to the Air Force Reconnaissance, the 53rd. Those guys out there doing a wonderful job, and they'll be flying in and out of this thing until it makes landfall.
So I went up. I've been up a couple of times with who is now Colonel Chad Gibson. Chad was the PIO, and he was the dude down there in Biloxi, and he invited me to go a couple of times, and I went on a couple of trips. I think to this day I still have a record for the largest cooler brought onto a Hercules J model. And so I went on a couple of flights. I went into the hurricane that went over Cuba there. Gosh, now I'm not even remember. No, the Cuban storm, 3 letters. There I got
Ike.
Ike.
Ike, back in
Yeah,
2008.
I flew into Hurricane Ike,
12
and which was a 12, 13-hour trip, by the way. But the netting was very, very comfortable. But I brought a big cooler, and we brought a bunch of sandwiches, and I fed everybody. Alan Ray Seals, and I were. He was still is down in Mobile, Alabama. He was one of my roommates when I was at Florida State University, and Alan went with me, and we had a bet on who was going to hurl first. I didn't, but I slept more. I think I slept for about 10 out of the 13 hours, but what a cool trip. And I was going to say, if you've never been before, book a trip, but they don't do it that way anymore. But I'll show you sometime. I'll show you some of that video, because there are a few times I screamed like a little boy.
Those hurricane hunter trips, I've got some friends there that we follow too. One of them's Nick, that is a hurricane hunter, and recently they flew into Ian across as it came north of Cuba and was headed toward the west coast of Florida in late September. And they said that was one of the worst flights that they've ever been on.
Really?
They dropped 2,000, 3,000 feet in a matter of a couple seconds. The turbulence was just completely awful as they were coming into the storm. Right there, when it was doing some of the funky motion just off the coast of Florida, they said, they were fully expecting that thing to maybe go Category 5 with the type of turbulence they were dealing with.
Yeah, let's talk about this track here, by the way, just so you know, if you've ever wondered what goes on. They're not just in there flying around in a big circle. They have to make X's through the storm. Sometimes you'll make about 8 or 10 of them as you pass on by. So they fly through where they believe the center of the storm is. You have any number of radar display in front of you, so you really know when you're coming into the eye of the hurricane. And so at this point, you can see they did mark a spot here. Now, they marked the low pressure there of 984, but they did have a spot here at the bottom of what looks like the eye of the storm, Brett, where they did have a change, where it did veer as far as the anemometer goes. As far as these, we can show you here, and I don't know that the white is indicative of some lower number, I'm sure, and the red is up there. What's the red?
They have a thing on board, and David is well aware of what this is. It's called a Smurf. It's basically a radar there that's measuring these things as well. What they're likely going to show on the Smurf data is that the pressures are probably slightly lower just southwest of where that 984 is. That 984 is what we call a drop sonde. They physically drop instrumentation down into where the eye they think is going to be. They're trying to hit it dead center, trying to hit it like a target on a dartboard. And sometimes they miss. Sometimes the storm doesn't want to cooperate. So we may see that data on the Smurf be a little lower pressure wise, because they may have just missed the center. And I can tell you how I'm gonna tell you if that's the case. So I can go and look at the raw data on these drop sondes. And if you go and you look, that sonde that was in that area was drop sonde number 8. Well, no, is that 8? Let's see here. Let's see here, Dave. 1 second. Let me get the right data before
You're doing well.
Talking crazy. Okay, yeah, it is number 8 here. So sonde number 8, at the surface, the winds were out of the north at 7 knots. So they may have missed it just a little bit because the winds aren't calm. Typically, I look for a calm eye to have around 2-knot type wind or less. So pressure could be a little bit lower than that, but does it really matter at that point? So yes, looks like a goalpost down there, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. And the thing about it is that these people make those trips over and over while you and I are asleep. These people are putting their lives into, well, the actual aircraft is super sturdy. I actually had a little bit of a fear of flying, Brett, before I did that, but I saw what a plane could take being in that storm, passing through the center of it many times till I was a little bit numb to it. I actually sat across from what would have been the sixth pilot, who was an alternate pilot. I sat across from this gentleman. He was sitting in the netting across from me, and I thought, if he looks worried, then I'll get worried. And he was reading a book. It was called Twilight. Not making this up. Dude was reading Twilight. And every time I got a little shook up, I'd look over at him. He just kept reading Twilight. So I don't know if he was team. Well, I don't know. I never asked him who he was actually for. But right. I trusted him, and he never looked up, so I didn't worry about it at all. But they do this, all the time, and I've had 2 flights with them, and I keep saying I'm going to take a third. But if I miss a meal, I get a little bit grumpy. I know you do.
You know I do. That's that. Matter of fact, when we finish this feed, we've got to go find food because everything's going to shut down here. But
well. That's kind of it. I don't think we have anything new, really, as far as what we're
actually
being told.
We do. We got one thing that we both forgot about a little bit. So let's talk about NASA, guys. We're pretty close to Cape Canaveral, Titusville, down in that area. So there was supposed to be a flight from the Artemis rocket this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That has been scrubbed. They scrubbed that officially until, I believe, November the 16th. Evan Freiberger sent me that information. Yep, November the 16th. It's pushed back to. But here's the kicker. It's out on the launch pad, and they can't move it now. And from what I understand, one of those fuselages might have some fuel in it. So they're going to be watching that very, very closely. Because the rocket's in place, there's not a whole lot you can do about it now until after the storm. But yes, that Artemis launch that was supposed to take place is not going to take place any further.
Keep talking for just a second, because I'm about to blow your mind.
Yeah, you probably can pull us up a nice little camera view of that or something. I don't know. I'm just a weather guy, not a producer.
I watched it on the pad last night. I was looking at it.
Yeah, we can pull that feed if you can find it, but that's kind of what we're looking at. And if you can imagine, this track is almost a worst case type of track for that area. Even though it's a weaker storm with storm surge and any kind of wind, the max wind velocities may go right through that area. So that's going to be something that they're monitoring like around the clock as these bands and the core of this storm begin to move forward. David, we've got 505 people watching right now.
Will you apologize to him for me?
I apologize for David because
I blew it at the beginning.
David is David. He blew it. We do this from time to time. No, not really. We're just dealing with some technical difficulties, and we're kind of working through this. Turning this into hopefully a product that you guys enjoy that we're going to do more often. Again, I'll give you a little bit of information. We should start live tomorrow afternoon. I'll have a feed going to YouTube from the truck directly. If you want to watch what I see out the windshield and hear exactly what's going on in my vehicle, I'll be there. We'll have David housed here where he'll be in the studio. I will be talking to him just like I'm doing right now on camera from time to time. I've got some other obligations that I have to live up to as well. But I'll be talking to David, and we'll be covering this system until it comes inland into Florida. We'll probably have to take a little break, take a nap at some point after landfall, and then I will continue inland with the storm, and we'll see if David wants to jump around and get involved too.
So at 7 o'clock, 27.3. I wonder if anybody still plots. When I was a kid, man, I couldn't wait for these numbers to come out because I had my little hurricane tracking chart. And it's still a very, very cool thing if you want to do that. It's moving to the west at about 10 miles an hour now, 984 millibars. Maximum sustained winds at 65 miles per hour. We're going to get a better clue about that as we go along through the day tomorrow. But you can see the headline is from NHC. Nicole likely to become a hurricane by Wednesday. Not exactly midnight. They're thinking 3 a.m., 6 a.m. We'd have a hurricane Hurricane Nicole during the early part of the day tomorrow. A couple of things that we were looking at was how much rain, Brett. This is yellow is going to be the 4 to 8, I think, and the orange is going to be anywhere from 6 to 8 inches. Most of that is offshore at the moment, where it's
It's just moving
projected.
too fast.
Huh?
It's just moving. It's just going to move too
Yeah,
fast. I mean,
yeah.
you know,
So
that's one bit of good news, I guess. If we've got anything, we're not dealing with a strong high end hurricane, and we're not dealing with a huge widespread flooding threat.
yeah. And their little surge thing here says 3 to 5 right there into the yellow, but we know there may be some more, especially now if you look at a south fetch coming into the bay there at Cape Canaveral, you can shove a lot of water back in there really fast, and that could be a problematic situation there, as well as Jupiter Inlet, as well as I'm trying to think of some of these inlets there that would really be affected with a due east wind coming in that would shove a lot of water up into those areas. And just the opposite effect is going to take place down to the south here, by the way. You're going to get a west wind, and that'll blow the water back out over the water, Hollandale Beach down to, well, all the way to the Keys, really. The other thing I thought was kind of interesting, so they're sort of projecting if the low pressure center ends up east of Tampa, we'll say, and the wraparound on the backside would be a westerly wind, so there may be some surge here in these areas. But it'd be after the fact. It'd be much later.
Right. Right. The storm would be pretty much ejecting off to the northeast, and you'd have small banding features on the southern flank of it. But all the wind flow around the system, you're going to get the counterclockwise flow. So you're going to get southwesterlies pulling into the Big Bend up into the bay there, Appalachia Bay, and Cedar Key and areas up in there. What is that? Crystal River. Some of those areas over there probably going to deal with some water.
Yeah, and let me, since we're doing this, give me one more second here because I did want to talk about really quickly. Let me shut all of this stuff down here for the moment. And let's talk about this real quick here, Brett, because there is a major situation trying to take place as well off to the north, across the northern United States, which is going to be the first big snowfall event to take place of the year, where we're looking at actually some maybe 8, 10, 12 inches of snow that'll be taking place across these areas as we move on through the day tomorrow. And let me see if I can just throw in some of the precipitation. Here's the precipitation type that you'll be seeing as it comes on in, and the timing. This is going to be, it's going to try to do the 0Z. Let me do the 18, which is finished, and the 0Z is now coming in. But here's what it looks like during the day tomorrow. Starting out is freezing rain, if you will, on the backside of this near Pier and Rapid City. This is going to be at early tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. when that switchover occurs. And as the heavy snowfall passes on by, watch it fill in as snow in Bismarck, eastern Montana, Rapid City, all the way down into the northern parts there of Nebraska, of South Dakota, if you will. And then moving on eastward to Fargo, Bismarck. Now, there's a thin line of really, really heavy precipitation there, Brett, where I don't particularly like these color tables, but it's going to show us where the total precip is going to bring in some of these 8 to 12 inch totals, I think, that'll be falling here, basically from Bismarck to Fargo. But a big time. You'd be on this if it weren't for the hurricane, wouldn't you?
If it weren't for the hurricane, we've already been looking at this because one of our mid-range models, the Euro, has been showing this really well for the last, 6 days or so. Powerhouse system in the Midwest. One of the other elements to this that you're going to see some blizzard conditions up there most likely is this thing really winds up in western Minnesota, back in the North and South Dakota there, especially eastern portions up near Grand Forks, Fargo. That's quite a bit of snowfall there. The other element, though, to the south is there's a risk of severe weather, too. Even some isolated tornadoes as this storm begins to pivot. We're going to see a really thin, powerful line, more than likely, develop down to the south across maybe southern South Dakota into Nebraska and sweep across portions of Iowa, maybe even southern Minnesota. It won't take much to mix down some of those really strong winds as that line comes through there. You can see it here as David runs a loop of the model there. Even some individualized type of thunderstorms, could evolve from that type of a situation too, which is pretty crazy. But let's see, Dave, what time period is that?
It's 11 p.m. on well, that's tonight actually.
That's tonight. Yeah, let's move forward in time a little bit there. Maybe back it out a little bit wider, and you'll see that really get going.
Over here.
Yeah, it starts going there. There it is. See the line starting to
Yeah.
develop back to the south of Sioux City. Yeah, you can see that down toward Grand Isle. That's a thin line, but I guarantee you there's going to be some damaging wind gusts, severe thunderstorm warning type of line there that really you may not see much lightning with, and it'll be over as quick as it started, but it's probably going to have some pretty damaging wind gusts, 60, 70 miles an hour there as it runs across East Nebraska, North Kansas, and portions of Iowa. The bigger threat, though, again, the biggest story is going to be the snowstorm there off to the north from Pierre, South Dakota to Bismarck up toward Grand Forks, and then as we go into northern Minnesota.
Big deal there. And like we were just saying, it would be the deal that would be covered here. I guess if there's any sort of reasoning behind the priority, it is that the snow is coming. It's not in an area where you don't expect snow. It's where it's very well expected, but in this line right here, there is going to be as much as several feet of snow that could fall in this green area through here that goes up to International Falls, the icebox of the nation. I wanted to be able to say that, but it could be anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of snow falling in this region. In some outer areas here, it might be just as much. So big deal going on up into the upper Midwest as well. We won't forget about it. We'll try to remind you and look at the radar image during the day tomorrow during times when we can. All right, we've been on for an hour. We were on basically for the first 5 minutes without any audio. Again, I apologize for that, but there's no way I can blame Brett, so I'm just going to take it all on myself. It was my fault. And I need to see. I didn't see I got a little meter over here that says when you're talking. Sometimes I shut you off because I really don't want to hear you. But this was a situation where I wanted to hear you.
Yeah, we get there from time
My
to
bad.
time, but that'll be all right. We're going to work out some of those bugs tonight, guys, and what we're going to do is I will continue to set up our community posts that will show both of the feeds that we're going to go live tomorrow, and you can basically set a reminder to be notified when we get ready to go live, just like you are tonight in most cases. Myself and David will be here again tomorrow covering landfall of Nicole and whatever it may bring as we go into the depths of tomorrow night, because it looks like that's when she wants to come ashore.
Yep. It will be doing so. Once again, Tropical Storm Nicole, 65-mile-per-hour winds. We'll keep you up to date and more about the information going along with Nicole. I'm David Neal, Brad Adair. We'll join you again during the day tomorrow with live coverage. If you'll be with us, please ask us as many questions as you would like to, and we'll try our best to get back to those. Anything else?
We didn't even check on those. Maybe before we close it out, just does anybody have any questions?
Well, that is your fault because I
got ahead of myself that time. Let me see if anybody's got any questions, David. We'll run through those really quickly, and then we'll go get some food, maybe.
I didn't get a chance to eat myself.
And that's part of life, David. That's what we do here. So I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it for the next 60 seconds. Anybody have any questions? If you do, speak now or forever.
Nobody asked a question and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I brought some of them into the question or into the context there so that they got their answers.
I want to start bringing people on. By the way, if you want to be on, we won't throw you on live. We may not be able to hear you because I'm not good with audio, but we're gonna let you ask your questions live if
Lisa,
like.
I did above. Would Dothan, Alabama be a safer place to go tomorrow to start? Okay, hold on. What is okay? She's in St. Augustine, Florida.
Oldest city in the United States, by the way.
That's right. Will it be hit in what time? Okay. So based on what we were looking at, you see these outer bands on the radar now, and we're going to see some of that shower activity really starting now all along the coastline as it tracks to the south and west. As we get later into the day tomorrow, we're going to see more activity as the center of the system approaches the coastline. That means we're going to see more rain, wind. We're going to see that storm surge element as the storm begins to make landfall. So St. Augustine, you're going to get an onshore flow eventually. The St. John River up there, I mentioned two of those graphics earlier at Mayport and at Jacksonville Beach. They're or Jacksonville area there in the Midtown area. It's showing, some pretty high water levels along that river. So that's something that we're going to have to look at as the storm begins to move in, those tide gauges. So honestly, if you had a reason and you were going to visit a family member or something like that, not a bad idea to get out if you wanted to get out ahead of the storm and you don't want to deal with any potential issues. But I think St. Augustine, regarding the wind, is going to be away from the bulk of the wind issues. I think their issues up there will be primarily outer bands that could have any spin up tornadoes, isolated areas of flooding, and then it really depends on the storm surge. I mean, winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour in gusts can knock your power out. So if you're not prepared to deal with anything like that, that could be a problem as well.
Yeah, it sort of did. And again, this is the radar. That's 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, where some of at least the first little outer band comes into St. Augustine. So expect some rain there, maybe some. The NAM has this little kidney bean sort of shape to everything. So we may even start to have tornadoes at that point. Water spouts, perhaps it would be coming onshore from your south and east, if you will. And, that's kind of the thought here, I think, behind a little bit of the modeling that we do have, that we could have a couple of water spouts turn tornado there. This is at 10 o'clock tomorrow night when the actual storm starts to come onshore south of you. And again, the banding features that Brett was talking about will definitely be prevalent. And I could see St. Augustine just getting a buttload of rain. If the thing goes on to the west out, Appalachia Bay kind of thing, then still this is all spouty out in here, and you're in the flow to where the spoutiness would be coming on shore at this point. All this, kind of has a veering with it.
Right.
Did you say that and I just wasn't listening to you?
Well, no, yeah, I mentioned something about the possibility of some tornadoes. I wasn't thinking about water spouts, but given your proximity to the close coastline, you're likely going to see some of that water spout activity, even as the center moves onshore and toward the north and west.
Yeah.
Because again, as you see, those kidney beans, little isolated cellular elements there in the bands. I could see several tornado warnings, going into later Thursday after the main bulk of the activity moves off to the west on the west coast of Florida. So, yeah, and let's see what else we got. Okay. Current storm track stays the same. What will the conditions look like in Valdosta, Georgia? And I think it's safe to say they're going to get a pretty big rain and wind event out of this.
Yeah, Valdosta's kind of, in that same little fetch area there where it all come in from your southeast. If you look at it here, if this materializes, this is the NAM, the 3K NAM. I don't know that everybody's going to be in agreement that the thing pops back out over Appalachia Bay or the east side of the Gulf. But if it does, it keeps you in that precip, that high level precip into Valdosta all throughout that area. And I don't know let's see what the total precip would look like here if we moved down the line a little bit further.
I think if I were in Valdosta, that would be one of the areas I'd be concerned about for tornadic activity.
Yep.
It looks like that they could get in an area where a lot of those cellular elements, pull through there. Heavy rain as well, but there's going to be some wind and some. I bet you there's some power outages and possibility of some isolated tornadoes up there.
Probably so. Again, it just takes a little. If it goes to the east of you, that's not a big deal. Really, if it ends up to the east of you more, this gets dropped off into the coastal areas there. But
current trajectory, if it maintained that current track, Valdosta would get some interesting weather for sure, because that center of circulation is going to either turn and come right over Valdosta, maybe just to the west or just to the east of Valdosta. So they're going to be near, an area for some interesting weather from this.
Let's see what the 0Z her is fully in. Let's see what we got here. It's pretty amazing. None of the models are more than 50 miles off as far as the landfall goes. That's Port St. Lucie again with a huge eye at that point. Um, but nothing
Just got
really.
a just got another note from another viewer. Eye is very visible on Bohemian radar now, looking good. So that's interesting. I'll have to see if I can find a link for that, or if you guys are
I got it.
looking. If you,
I got it, but I'd have to go to it. Like I need something else to go to here to get off of you. Hold
yeah,
on.
no, you're fine. And then let's see. Any news about Fort Lauderdale? They just announced that they're closing schools and they're distributing sandbags. And is that a bad sign? Well, better to be safe than sorry in regards to distributing sandbags. And, it's going to get windy there. If they're on the south side of the center or the north side, it's going to be windy. There could be some power outages. There could be some localized flooding. So it's probably better to err on the side of caution because um, I would assume most of the businesses are going to close. Most of the people are going to be off the road. They want to keep everybody off the roadways. You don't want to have any kind of potential issues that you don't need. So, however, most of this again could be coming on during the nighttime hours. So, during the day on Thursday, we could be looking at some cleanup mode down in that area if there is issues. So it's better to be safe than sorry. I don't think that's a bad call at this point.
No, I think that's absolutely what they're trying to do is to make sure that they're. Where is the Bahama radar?
That's what I'm looking.
I was thinking
Will
about
all of
Bermuda.
right? Will all of Florida be impacted? I would say a good chunk of it. Maybe the far western Panhandle will deal with very little in the way of impacts. They'll have some offshore flow over there and some choppy conditions due to that strong offshore flow. But most of Florida is going to have some impacts. Maybe areas west of Destin won't see so much. But yeah, a big chunk of the peninsula, even, there's going to be some chop issues even down into the Keys and maybe some banding down into the Keys. The flow will be coming out of the Gulf of Mexico onto the islands down there, but that is definitely going to be the case. Let's see. Don't see anything else right now, David. I know we're still looking for that Bohemian radar real quick.
I see it in a couple of places where I can't use it.
I got you. I got you.
I mean, I have some friends there, but
Well, oh yeah. No, here we go. Bahamas composite radar, Bahamas weather. Here you go. I got.
well, don't say here
Well,
you go because that doesn't help me.
that's a composite, so that's not going to work.
I see the. You know anybody at tropicalatlantic.com?
I'm not going to touch it. I don't think.
Nope. Just
I'm
asking.
looking. Yeah, I don't.
They have a department of meteorology there, but I don't see the radar.
I just saw that too. Hold on, I'm going to find it. I'm going to
ask the viewer where he's getting it from, or she, whoever sent
That's
it.
what I'm. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm waiting to see if I can get the info here.
I got a .org.
Don't see anybody. Don't see anybody responding to that right now. I got a .org. That's what I was looking for. The radar.
And it's a composite, and you can.
That is their radar mosaic on their website. Yeah, yeah. I saw that, and that's on the government page.
Yeah. Is this what we're looking at? Is this the one you're talking about? Well, there's the eye. There's the western eye wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that actually does look pretty good even on that radar there, though.
Yeah.
The Bohemian radar there.
Yeah.
So
Nassau's down here at the bottom of the picture. Freeport. This is Freeport right there, so not too far away from there.
Right. MYAM. I may actually have it. 1 second, Dave.
We got to give away a prize here. Like somebody gets to take a trip with you to go.
Ooh, that would be. I don't know. I don't know what that would be. I don't know if that would be wise, but we can talk about it.
Well, I think I just guaranteed it, Brad. I already said it on the air, so we got to do it now.
Fantastic. So you put me on the hook for it, right?
Yep. There's
I
an
don't
extra
see
seat
it,
back
man.
there.
Yeah, well, sometimes you're right.
Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't.
Guys, I don't. Okay, that's what he said. It's through one of the. It looks like it's through one of the
Other people?
media guys that we can't really use here.
I'd ask them, but.
Well, I won't. Yeah, well, here's one that might work. This might work. I think it may be the one that you actually have up. The tropical Atlantic one.
No, I didn't look at that. I asked you about it, and you said.
Yeah, I think we're okay with that one. Just pull the tropical Atlantic one up, and you can use it. We're okay there. Yeah, we're trying to make sure that we're on the up and up here, though, guys. Oh my goodness. Let's see.
I'm gonna let you see Jupiter Inlet for just a second. Some people out there looking for it. You talking to me?
Yeah. Can I help? Yep. Where at? No kidding. All right, I need to call them in. I got mine tonight. I need to check on that for tomorrow. The people that own this hotel own that hotel, but that's weird. Yep.
Do you know your mic's on?
Yep, I know it's on.
Okay.
Anyway, this is Brandon Clement on the phone here, everybody. Hi,
Hey, Brandon. Why is it Brandon on our show tonight?
David, Brandon's actually traveling at this moment, but
it's never stopped him before.
Hi, David.
Say hi to all the viewers, Brandon.
Hi, all the viewers, Brandon.
Anyway, so
he's still a smart
thanks for the info. I'll call you back in just a minute.
Okay.
All right, man. Bye. Bye, David, and I cut him off.
Such a smart aleck.
I
love that guy.
Anyway,
I used to look. He never sleeps, by the way. He and Brett, they never sleep. But I used to interview Brandon all the time when I was at another TV station. And Brandon would say, I'd say, hey, so Brandon, I could be watching his video, and all hell would be breaking loose on his video out in front of his camera. And I'd say, so Brandon, tell me about what's happening. It looks pretty bad, isn't it? And he'd go, yeah.
Yes, that is Brandon. That is classic Brandon.
I'd say, so Brandon, do you see? It looks like the water's really coming up high right there, right all around your car, isn't it? It looks pretty bad. Yeah. He was a great interview. He was a great interview. I loved interviewing Brandon.
Well, I mean, unless everything's ending and the world's ending around him, it's not that bad. It's not that bad of a day.
He has to have blood that's like, his heart beats like a beat every 30 seconds or so. He's got to be the calmest person in the midst of what looks like just breaking loose in front of him. Because I've talked to him many times when stuff would be falling in front of him, and he just doesn't get very excited. But I guess you got to be that way for what you're doing.
We've seen so much that there's very little now that we're kind of desensitized to the smaller stuff. I try to stay and maintain a real element of it but even sometimes, especially with like smaller storms, this is a little different because this is a larger size storm. But with weaker tornadoes and things like that, people that don't work in the business don't have that element of worrying. It doesn't matter if it's a F1 or a F5 tornado. If it hits somebody's house, it's their Tuscaloosa or
It's an
their
F5.
their El
Exactly.
Reno or their Joplin. It's their worst nightmare. So I have to keep that in the forefront of my mind when I'm out doing this stuff, because you got to be sensitive to those folks, because it's very interesting. I see Brandon's jumped in the chat. He says, I can't defend myself now.
I know. That's why I was talking about him, because I knew he couldn't say
That's,
anything back.
that's why this
But
is
did
so
I not
fun.
ask you today? Did I not say, can Brandon be on with us as a guest tonight? Did I not do that?
You know what? You did, and to be honest with you, I could probably send him a link and pop him in here now.
Send him a link and pop him in here now. I almost know how to do it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's try it.
I got nothing else to do. You're the one who claims not to have eaten.
You're right. Hold on just a second. Let's see. Brandon. I don't care. I mean, I can go a little while without food. At least we got food till midnight, we know. Let's see. All right. He's got some new technology that I'm really excited about that I've got on
Is he
the
ready
way
to talk
as
about it?
well. Probably not. He's probably not going to tell any of his secrets, which I'm not either. But
Okay. Well, I'll tell you every secret I've got. I don't have
no,
no
David,
secrets.
no, you can't do that. Hold on, I'm gonna see if he's going to come in here.
Well, I don't. Hold on.
Dang, Dave, I don't need to see all your Yahoo and all that jazz.
Is that what you're looking at?
Oh, never mind. Yeah, that's what I was looking at. The public's not, so we're good.
Well, I don't care if you see my Yahoo. I guess. I don't know. Maybe I do.
Maybe you can drop Brandon in here somewhere. We'll just kind of see what he's thinking.
Well, this could be a problem.
Okay, we got Brandon in here. I hear him.
Wait a minute. I don't.
You there, Brandon? Hold on just a minute. He's working on piping you in. He's working on piping you in here. Hold on, guys. We're piping Brandon Clement in. We're gonna try to get a little bit of information from him. He's not going to give you any information because he never gives any information, but we're going to try to get it anyway.
Talk about something interesting.
Well, the interesting thing that I see there, I guess it's interesting, is that there's a marginal risk of severe weather on the east coast of Florida, and we've got possibility of some tornadic activity that is going to move into the area too with this landfall. Some of these minor spin ups, waterspout type of things. So we've got that going on. Working on Brandon here, trying to get him set up currently. I put David on the spot here, so so he could screw it up and not me.
Very much so.
Let's see. It's good. Is David what?
Yeah, I don't want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, David's actually writing new code at the current time. He's almost there though, I think.
You think?
I think he might be. I don't know.
I'm almost there. If it's going to work, it's going to work right about. I need to control it from here. Boom.
I cannot.
Look at him. He's dark as he can be.
Yeah, he's
supposed to be
dark.
straight up and down.
He's dark and he's vertical. He doesn't know how to use landscape. Hey, there he goes.
There he goes.
There he goes.
Yeah, but
Look
can
at
we
that.
hear him?
There you go, Brandon. We got your stream of your camera rolling down the road up. He's
But can we hear him? Hold on.
say something, Brandon.
Hello.
There it is. You need to drop his audio down a little bit, Dave.
Is he 8?
He's right below me. There he is. That's him. All right, go ahead now, Brandon.
Hi, David.
Hey, B?
Hey, you there?
Yeah.
Hey, your code works.
Hey. And I put this together all by myself, B.
There you go.
Nobody helped me. None
Well,
of the people
let's
on the
talk-
other side. Where
let's
are
talk
you?
That sounds like an endeavor with Brett.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you're always underneath the storm, so I'm assuming you're somewhere in the Bahamas?
Yeah, no, I'm in Mobile, which is kind of its own storm, but
Heard of it.
Well, you're on live, Brandon, just so you know.
Does he know he's on?
oh, I know.
Let's keep it clean and whatnot for now.
Oh, that's clean.
Oh, it is. It is. Mobile, is it clean?
It's as clean as Mobile.
Easy now, people.
Anyway,
I still visit
We're
there.
we're having a little discussion about the storm, Brandon. So, I mean, obviously, you're not going to tell us all of your plans, but what are you thinking? What are you planning a little bit?
I think people are severely underestimating the impacts of this storm along the coast compared to the category size.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
I could see that. I could see where it's a little bit being underplayed. That's the reason we're kind of getting on here, and we've actually got a good number. We got almost 600 people watching right now.
Well, you know how rare it is for me to say it's being underplayed. So.
Yeah, I do.
Well, right, and given things that are going on in the news right now, hadn't seen much talk about the weather going on. So this is definitely a factor. I think by the time we go into tomorrow morning, I'm going to be interested to see if they really start to play this up a little bit more.
My big concern is just how much the surge comes up and how far it allows the waves to carry in. So
Right.
you can see some pretty extreme erosion and even getting up into some buildings and crashing against buildings and even washing out parts of A1A is possible. So I think people are underestimating the size of this wind field and what it could do just because they're looking at the cat number. That's kind of my thing on it.
You know, you look at it, and so you think about it during the day tomorrow, especially tomorrow morning. That's going to be a north wind for a little while, or a north and actually a northeast wind. And so the water's going to be going in one direction. You're going to push the water down the beach to the south along the northern part of Florida. So you'll be pushing water from Jacksonville, probably even from as far north as southern Georgia. That water will be pushed southward. You're going to have a big pileup anyway. And what seemingly could happen, I suppose, is somewhat what happened with our past storm with Ian, where you pile it up and then the actual storm comes in and it squeezes it and you don't have a place for it to go. So there's going to be an area where it may pile up a lot within about 30 or 40 miles right near the center, because then that wind's going to end up coming in from due east for you who are north of West Palm Beach, say, all the way up to Canaveral. And you pinch it off and you just don't have the opportunity for it to go in either direction. It's either going to go north, south, or inland. The water is. It has no other choice. So there is a scenario there where you bring in a lot of water prior to landfall because it's coming from the north down to the south along the beach, not necessarily being pushed inland that much because of the trajectory. 20, 30 degrees probably the vector will be the fetch. And then you pinch it off as the low gets even closer and closer. And, that's something that we would be looking at there. Did I just bore Brandon to death and he left?
I don't think so. I think he lost it. I think he's coming back in, and we're gonna kind of let him go, and then we can kind of wrap up as well. I think we've answered quite a few questions here.
I hope so.
And I believe, hopefully everybody enjoyed the guest. There's Brandon. Brandon just popped back up in there.
But will he pop back up on the screen?
Let's see. May take his audio a minute to populate. I think I hear him there, Brandon. No, I think he's gone. It killed him off. Again. Yeah, he did. Anyways, guys, hope we answered all your questions. We'll be back, tomorrow afternoon. I think is where we get into go time, and it really ramps up tomorrow night. So we'll be here. We'll have the feed from the truck, the feed from the studio rolling. Everybody that watched tonight, please watch for the community post that I'm going to send out again, letting you know when we're going to go live tomorrow. Set those notifications so they go off. And we're going to be rolling through this storm, through Nicole, as she makes landfall, whatever. And
well, let me just say this. I'm going to go ahead and throw this in because the first 5 minutes were screwed up tonight. For all of you who watched tonight and went through the sorrows of having audio problems, tomorrow is free. Tomorrow there'll be it's totally free to watch tomorrow. So you don't have to pay again. And we just appreciate you being here with us tonight. We are tracking Nicole. We were tracking severe thunderstorms just a couple of days ago in Texas, and now we're already, Brad is down in South Florida tracking Nicole. It's going to be a 48-hour event and then some. And as he said, we'll be with you during the day tomorrow. So let me wrap it up. You got something else?
One final note. We did a little stream the other night talking about tornadoes. One of our tornadoes, Lamar County, Texas, just north of Paris, upgraded to an EF4 today.
Wow.
One of the homes was engineered very well. The Weather Service determined there was 170 mile per hour damage point on that, so that put it into the EF4 category. I talked to the warning coordination meteorologist while we were on this call, and they're asking me about some of the locations of the drone footage that I shot down in Morris County and Bowie County. So they're investigating that more in depth now. That was from the Weather Service in Shreveport. So we may see some more upgrades or changes in ratings because those are preliminary until they're not. They're preliminary right now.
All right. Good information once again. This is LSM. We're Live Storms Media with you for all the coverage. You know the name. You've seen all the videos, thousands and thousands of videos, over 300,000 subscribers now to LSM. We appreciate that very much as well. We want to keep adding, so hit the like if you will, and we'll do that. I'm meteorologist David Neal. Brett Adair is with us as well. He's a meteorologist also, and that's kind of important, by the way. I mean, 30 seconds I'm going to take here. You're going to see thumbnails during the day tomorrow that are going to say, blah, 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 sky's falling, da, 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 da. Don't worry about those thumbnails. Check on ours because I promise you we're going to tell you the truth. We'll back it up. And nothing's going to be said on the thumbnail that isn't true. So I hope that you get that out of this, is that I'm almost 60 years old. I don't have time to be fake. So we're going to be doing that and giving you all the latest, the live images from Brett's camera, his point of view from his vehicle as well. So for that, we tell you good night. Thank you, Heath Lawler, for all the work he does behind the scenes, as well as Brandon Clement, who was special guest tonight. We didn't know it. He didn't know it. And it was kind of cool, Brett.
It's cool to be able to pop people in on the fly. So we're going to do more of that in the future. And, we'll likely, it's going to be one of those things. You can see the residents there bagging up, getting ready. So we're getting ready to batten down the hatches, and we'll see you guys tomorrow, just sometime after the noon hour.
All right. We appreciate you being with us again. Tracking Nicole. That's what we've been doing. We'll be doing more of it as we move into the next 48 hours as well. That's Brett
Good
Adair.
evening, guys, here on the YouTube channel Local. It is about 6 o'clock, and as you can see, we're starting to see very big waves come in and swells here from Tropical Storm Nicole that is east out in the Bahamas right now.